Okay, back with the top 10. We are on my favorite part now, 5 and 6, battery and the ground wire. Nowadays, right, for the last 10 years, everything relies on electricity. It used to be that the fuel side of it just relied on gravity and physics. Nope, not anymore. Only the ignition side relied on electricity. Now everything, right? Your fuel delivery, because your fuel pump, your injector opening, all that stuff is electricity. So if you lose voltage, you're done. On top of that, the newer bikes, 2020s, not even a chance for a Kickstarter, right? That's kind of stupid. So if you're way out there and for some reason you're turning over your bike for a while or something goes wrong with your battery, one of the cells starts to crap out, the bike turns over slow, you are not starting it. It has to turn over to a certain RPM just to start the thing, and then it has to have a certain voltage for everything to go, and that's 12 volts, right? And your system's about 13 volts when it's running, so you don't need to lose much to where you'd be tacoed, right? Which is a nice way to say effed, right? Because taco and screwed kind of goes together. So my biggest suggestion to you is ditch this stock battery. This is about the cheapest thing they could put in it and still have it start. This is a 5 amp battery. You can spend about 140 bucks. You're going to gain a pound. But I'll tell you what, when you're out in the middle of nowhere and your bike still turns over and starts, it's worth the pound, right? 14 amps, almost 3 times the size, 3 times the cranking power to get this thing going. And I am a big fan of the Shirai brand batteries. You can use, there's lots of stuff out there. You can use whatever you want. But long story short, you can get a much better quality battery with a much higher amperage than the stock thing. So key to fix. And if you're going to do 2 things out of this top 10, it would be battery and add a ground wire, which we'll show you next. So to get rid of the stock battery, first you'll come in here with a 8mm socket and you will take the battery carrier bolt off here. Pretty easy. Then you will undo your negative and positive cable, pull this forward, get your battery out, and install the new, much better quality battery here. And when you get the right one, you want to make sure the negative and the positive lay in the same place. And the one that I use is this Shirai LFX 14L2 BS12. But when you look them up and you put your bike in the chart, the right thing will come up. Now let's put this back together with this ground strap and these 2 things, and then show you the ground wire situation. Ground wire situation. Okay, a concern is that some of the electronics ground here and back, right? They go from the battery through this ground strap to the aluminum subframe, and some of the other electronics ground up here in the front, right here behind the radiators, and you'll see a ground lug up here to the frame. Now the problem is it's hard sometimes for the back half of the electronics to connect to the front half, and that's because things have to travel through the aluminum subframe. Now aluminum isn't a great conductor of electricity, and if it gets through that, fine, which it seems to do, it now has to make the transfer between the aluminum and the steel, right, of the front subframe and up to here. Well, the only way that it can do that is through these connections, and if you take this bolt off, this bottom bolt and this top bolt, you know, if you look at these things, they're covered in Loctite. So now Loctite isn't conducive to electricity, so it doesn't go through the threads very well. And then, you know, when you separate these 2 things apart and look in there, you know, this black powder coat of the frame, it's not even ground away right there. It's still black powder coat of the frame. So it's really hard for the electricity to conduct well from the back half to the front half, and all the electronics to work together. And a problem with that becomes you'll be out there banging around in the woods or whatever, and the bike's kind of shaking around, right, the front half and the back half, and all of a sudden, because of a weird joint situation, you might lose electricity between the front and the back. And all of a sudden, if that happens, well, you know, then the coil just quits sparking because it doesn't have a ground circuit to it, right? Everything has to complete a circuit. It has electricity to it and back to the battery, and the battery is an integral part. So if it doesn't come back to the ground circuit, things shut off, right? So you have to keep that in mind. And that's a big problem. Only with the KTMs. Husqvarna's, because they have a composite rear subframe, they have a big fat battery cable that goes from the battery ground up to the front. They've got that covered, right? They know it's not going to ground out. The KTMs are the problem. So we're going to run a sweet little ground wire like this, which is real nice. It's only an 18 gauge wire, which easily handles the amperage that this thing will put out. Now it's done. You can see our wire running cleanly through here. And we're going to hook it up to our ground lug here. And I guarantee you, you have solved more problems that you will encounter with $150 or so with the battery and, you know, $2, $3 with the ground wire here than anything else you can do. Real problems and ghost problems. There you go. Enjoy that one. Thanks for watching. Best Dual Sport Bikes. We appreciate you. Now we're going to move on to wheels and exhaust in our top 10.